and this morning I want to talk to you about your feet. First off, why am I thinking about feet? It's because feet are super connected, and even though a lot of my focus is on improving function in your pelvis and your hips, it's the feet influence that massively. What's going on in the foot, which has a lot of support for you and movement for you, travels up into your shin, into your knee. So if you have any knee tightness issues, pain, sometimes it has to do with what's going on in the foot, right? This is our intersection with the ground, right? Or up into the hip. This is so cool. The hip and the pelvic floor are so intertwined, right? There's some muscles that are hip muscles and also pelvic floor muscles. So I've seen times when working on the hip actually fixes the pelvic floor issue without doing any pelvic floor work, right? So there's this connection all the way up that lower body limb. So, foot support. First off, a foot that is feeling lovely and doing its job is going to be able to move, be really mobile, and also going to be able to be rigid when it needs to be. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the foot kind of like can move, right? It can twist, especially this front part of the foot is really mobile. It's pushing off, it's doing all sorts of things. The heel is a little more stable, but it also moves around and it's mobile. So there's a lot going on inside your foot. I talk a lot about foot tripod with my students, and it's really this idea that you're looking for some support or interaction with the ground from this knuckle at the base of your big toe, the base of the baby toe, on the ball of the foot, right? So these two outside edges, and then on the heel. Okay? You also want the toes to be nice and relaxed on the ground and actually contacting the ground, but not gripping, right? So that gives you this really nice support. It works all the way up the line. I also find people who are like, I can never feel my butt in squats, but then we look at their feet and we're like, oh, you're really lifting off this one tripod point on your foot all the time. Can we work to try and get that more grounded? And all of a sudden, these muscles they never have felt before are on. Your base of support influences everything up the line. That whole idea of the tripod. And you want it to be nice and wide so it's coming out the outside edges of your feet. How it can go wrong one way is because of injuries or other things along the way, the mechanics in your foot have been changed. They've been altered because your body's just working to try and keep you moving forward, right? So sometimes that tripod gets narrower. And one way that you can check and see, you're like, well, I wonder if that's me. Like, I don't feel super strong and supported in my feet. Maybe my tripod's gotten a little narrow. Okay, I know that that's how it is for me, or has been. It's improving drastically. One telltale sign that this might be the case for you is actually look at the bottom of your foot. And if in this middle spot you have a big ass callus, like I do, that's a really good sign that you're actually putting a lot of pressure through that middle part of the ball of your foot, and that's probably your actual tripod. What you're using right now is you have this narrow tripod instead of the wider tripod going on. There's a few different pieces of the puzzle. It can be quite complex, but sometimes it's as simple as just putting a tiny bit of support. I wouldn't do it in your shoes, but like if you're doing an exercise, just being like, okay, I'm doing these squats and I'm just going to put a little something under each of those front tripod points on the outside edge so I can feel them. There's lots of pieces, but that's one way that you can give this feedback immediately to your body and be like, this is where I want the support. Here I'm gonna connect you with the ground so you can feel this. And I do this in my foot assessment work. We do a lot of work like this. And you do say a little lunge or something like that for 5 or 6 reps with different support under your feet, and then walk around and everything feels so different. So this is an amazing thing about the body is that you can give it the input that it needs, and then sort of takes it in and assimilates it, and it's like, ooh, wow, what? So there's your tripod. Is it wide or narrow? Right? We can influence it. You can teach your body how to have that wide base of support again. Okay. The other thing is, am I just losing one of my tripod points? Maybe I always have good contact with the outside edges of my heel and of my foot, but I sort of always lose the inside edge. That's really common. It's a place I've been in many times. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you really always have that lots of contact with the inside edge of your foot and really not a lot of grounding through the outside edge, right? Kind of rolled over on that ankle and in. People call that pronated. The other way, where there's lots of pressure on the outside, people will call that supinated. Okay, so you get these patterns, and sometimes it's different in each foot. Okay, so you'd have one foot with support on the outside edge and one foot with more support on the inside edge. And that can sort of give you a sense that, like, maybe there might be some rotation in your system or something else like that going on. Okay, so that can be driven from up here, but it can be driven from your feet as well. The other thing you can watch for is toes. So if this is the ground and the palm of my hand is the like main body of my foot, so these knuckles are the ball of my foot. Okay, so if it's sitting on the ground like this, say I'm doing a squat or something, pay attention. What is going on in your toes? Okay, do they lift as you go into your squat or come back up? Do they grip? Right, these are both ways that your body is trying to find support that it's missing. Okay, so often the lifting is sort of like, oh, it's looking for support, and often you've just lost your core support when the toes lift. Okay, the gripping's another thing, right? Just trying to find the floor. And it's a good, both of those are really good signs that your foot could use some more support. Anyways, so tripod, wide tripod, narrow tripod. Pressure. What points of the tripod are the ones that you use the most? And if you want better muscle recruitment in your hips, try an experiment of trying to get connection in the spots that you don't usually. Okay, so build awareness, notice what your habit is. You can put a little support under there, just a little thin bit of something, like a little bit of yoga mat or a folded strap or sock or something like that. And just experiment and see what it feels like to actually have that part have a connection with the ground. Yeah? And pay attention to your toes. Are they just nicely relaxed and solid on the ground? Or are they pushing in and pulling back and gripping? Are they lifting off? Do they do that in certain spots? Right? Different things to think about. I'd love to hear what you noticed. Where's your pressure? What's your tripod like? Do you have a big callus in the middle of the ball of your foot? Narrow tripod alert. You know, what are your toes tilting?